This is going to be kind of weird. Kingdom is the first toy line that I do one of my retrospectives for, where I reviewed basically everything leading up to its end. Kingdom is over, War for Cybertron is over, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't make me a bit sad and wistful. I know that the Transformers hasn't gone anywhere, I know that Legacy basically is just continuing on Kingdom's path with having Beast Wars characters, but it still feels like the end of an era, the end of the stuff that made me start my channel. Let's find out what the hell went wrong, because this line just doesn't make sense. Before we get started, you're all probably sick of hearing this by now, but I'm trying to hit 10,000 subscribers by the channel's second birthday on August 8th. If you enjoyed this video by the end, and you aren't already subscribed, please consider it. And if you would be so kind, like and share the video around. Anyways, Kingdom was a very odd line. What was promised to be the celebration of Beast Wars wasn't really by the end. It started with the first wave being mostly characters from the show, but by its conclusion it was basically all G1, and they never even got through all the characters who appeared in the first season. I have theories on what happened, and I'm pretty sure about one of them, but before we get into that, let's just take a look. Going in order of the waves this time, because I think that's more important than the size classes. We are going to start with our introduction to the new version of Legends class, Core Class, which is pretty much the same thing as before, but with more of a focused eye on accuracy and engineering. Core Class Optimus Prime. This is a good little figure. It's got a fair number of flaws, and the transformation in alt mode could use a lot of work. That's not to say that they're not fun, but some of the stuff just needed to peg together better, or come out without the use of tools, and the alt mode looks like you squash the cab vertically. But the posability is actually really high for the size class, and it just manages to be fun. Core Class Rat Trap. I know for a lot of people, this is their favorite core class, and it's fairly decent, but there's just too much wrong with the build of it for me. The knees and shoulders like to bend at their transformation hinges at every opportunity, the transformation just isn't fun, and then the alt mode is not only a brick, but it doesn't look at all like the character, and hell, it doesn't even look like a rat. It looks like a mouse. It's still decent, but it should be better. Vertebrate. A character made from whole cloth for this toy line. Not much to say here, except that it's weird that it's not a fossilizer considering it's made of bone just like those are. It's a good little toy, not as complex as the Prime, not as frustrating as the Rat Trap, but good in most respects. This is a solid 6 out of 10. Deluxe Cheetor. The first figure I reviewed in Kingdom, and one that I've reviewed many times since, because this was this line's version of Sideswipe or the Seekers, and I don't know that it deserves it. It's not a bad figure, but it's both not inspiring enough and too much of a unique design to really reuse. It makes sense for Sideswipe, he feels like the default Transformer, but Cheetor is just Cheetor. He's skinny and lithe, and for some reason this version of him is wearing really ugly pants, so it doesn't quite fit a generic character this time, and the figure has its issues. The transformation is a little frustrating and prone to damage, the posability is nothing even remotely remarkable, and his hideous shoes don't even hold him up in the best of circumstances. I'm glad to have gotten this once, but they kept releasing more, and I found it less and less compelling every time. Deluxe Black Arachnia. A figure with a bit more going on than the Cheetor, but its own drawbacks. Posing is better, sculpt is better, putting the Cheetor to shame on its accuracy. I wonder why? Transformation is more involved, but everything on this girl is so rail thin and the plastic isn't the best, so she constantly feels like she's on the verge of snapping in half. There's a tab that's pretty much guaranteed to break on every copy of the figure, and the spider mode is not the one she's supposed to have, but then again, that's a tall order. This is a good figure to have if you're a fan of the character or girl Transformers. Warpath. A good little tank dude, but depending on your QC, he could be better. Feet, despite looking huge, are not actually as big as you'd think, giving him weird stability problems you wouldn't expect, and the subjectively necessary parts forming to make the alt mode is a real bummer. But the tank and robot mode are excellent. For the most part, this guy's just uncomplicatedly good, aside from a tab that you should cut off to make the transformation on him easier. Paleotrix. The first of the Fossilizers, and just a strange figure in general, for reasons like being a Predacon, but having the head of Optimus Primal's weapon. This is easily the most useful of the Fossilizers as a weaponizer, and the best one in general, with a good robot mode and alt mode. Though the transformation is kinda ass. Voyager Optimus Primal. This one really kinda stuck in my craw. He's not a terrible figure, but there are some issues that get to me that other people don't seem to mind. Like the giant gap in his chest is a sucking sinkhole that draws my attention to it from every angle. Plus, of all the figures from the first wave, his beast mode is one of the most inexcusably ugly with the misshapen, inaccurate monkey head. Man, I did not know I was going to be proven so right when I mused that people would be mad if they did Prime figures in a G1 style, so why were we cheering on Beast Wars in a non-Beast Wars style? If this weren't the first time in 25 years we were getting Beast Wars figures, I'd be open to realistic animal designs. Do accuracy first, then do reinterpretations. Cyclonus. Oh my god, this thing is so good. This has been picked as one of the standouts of the entire WFC, and it deserves to be. Posing isn't anything really special, and the Glenn Clonus face is just awful, but everything else is phenomenal. It looks exactly like it's supposed to, it feels and is built great, though you can damage the knees by levering them in the improper order. The alt mode is basically perfect, it has no kibble, and the transformation is fun and incredibly easy when everyone else who tried to design this before made it seem impossible. No matter who made it, it would be an absolute nightmare to transform. It wouldn't take much to turn this into the best Cyclonus figure that could ever be devised by anyone. Leader Class Beast Wars Megatron. Early copies of this thing were breakable. Damage could be caused in several ways, but later releases are reported to have much better plastic that's far more durable. And that's all a shame because this was a superb figure. The rubber skin for the beast mode was an inspired choice, the robot mode was almost perfect, the transformation is one of the best the character ever had, and the beast mode is one of the most accurate of the entire line, with probably also being the most posable beast mode of all time. It was really incredible, and really what we should have been expecting from all the Beast Wars characters. Wave 2. Core Class Starscream. A figure that wound up better than it looked like it was going to be. The biggest flaw with it is the way the null rays like to fall off. But the figure was acceptably posable for the size, the transformation was interesting and unique, the jet mode wasn't bad, and this was pretty much the start of Core Class figures being better than their Voyager counterparts. Core Megatron. Continuing on with the theme of the cores kicking the crap out of their bigger brothers, with excellent posing, a fun aesthetic, a transformation that was a lot more enjoyable than the Siege and Earthrise ones, a cool accessory that a lot of people needed, and a tank mode that was somehow more cohesively in Earth mode than the Earthrise figure, this thing was just fun and good. But you might notice that we are getting away from the beast aspect of Kingdom. Airraiser, a figure that other people tend to like a bit more than I do. Robot mode is really good, head's a little weird and the weapons are too big, the posability is absolutely supreme here, but the transformation doesn't really do anything and the alt mode is extremely flawed. Other people can look past this, but I just see a curled up robot every time I look at this thing. It's a hard design to achieve, so I understand that, but I can't call this one a home run like others do. Ractonite, the worst fossilizer. Just everything about this one is worse than Paleotrix. The head is less interesting, the lack of hands is noticeable, it doesn't break down enough, making the weaponizing a complete joke, borderline non-existent, the transformation isn't really doing much, the beast mode is less dynamic, and like most of the fossilizers, they don't have any bio to speak of. Huffer. A figure that at the very least is a bit interesting. Originally being planned as an accessory for the MP10 Optimus Prime, instead they sat on that design for over a decade, producing it finally for Kingdom. It's easily the coolest Huffer has ever looked, but the posability is wanting. It's light and hollow, the transformation is clashy and unfun despite being dead simple, and the alt mode could have been great if it wasn't bent in the middle. This is a decent figure, again 6 out of 10, but it is by far the best use of this mold. Not talking about Ursi, Dinobot. A figure that was much better than I initially expected. There are a lot of things I'd change here. Like the torso is too big, though you can put him into this orientation to help with that a bit. Thank you to Millionite108. His arms are too small, plus he needs more paint and sword-wielding wrists, but the look is solid, the posability is solid, the transformation is solid, and the beast mode is quite possibly the most accurate of all of Kingdom. It's a great figure, it could be better, but then again, I always want Dinobot's figures to be perfect, because he is my favorite character of all time in anything ever. To the point where I never want to see him in anything ever again, because you can only make him worse. He's perfect right now. Leave him alone. Inferno. Yes, I know I hated Grapple for being insanely boring and easily damaged, but this figure fixes every last problem that one had. It looks cooler, it feels better, it's robust and durable, and they added like one more step to the transformation, and that turned out to be all it needed to become interesting. It's the same figure, but 100 times better. Leader Ultramagnus. I'm actually much more positive on this than I used to be. It is the inferior built version of the mold, but it does look a lot more accurate than the original one. If you want the best version of this figure, get the original Siege version. If you want a slightly worse but much more accurate version, get this one. What was with the late Wave 3 crap where Hasbro was just repacking the Siege version in the Kingdom box? I actually found one of those on shelves at Target and reported it as either a factory mistake or that it had been swapped out to the department manager. Wave 3. The line is just limping along at this point, wearing the face of being related to Beast Wars. But at least it produced this next figure, Core Class Soundwave. I don't know that I need to say much more about this thing than I already have. I have filleted this thing in video after video. Yet another core that crushes its Voyager overlords. All I can say is that it's all the fun of a Voyager packed into $10 and a figure the total mass of 2 of your fingers. Dracodon. Did not buy, why would I? It's the same figure as Vertebrake with uglier colors and no new head. Deluxe Scorponok. Oh, pain. This thing looks terrible from a distance and it wound up worse in hand. Normally you ask what went wrong with the figure, but here it's more what went right. And really the only thing I can say that went right with this was that it was not placed in the Voyager class just for the hell of it for more money. This is an inaccurate, ugly figure with a bad alt mode and one of the worst transformations I've seen in years. And to top it off, it's got to have the worst build of anything from the entire line. This thing is more prone to falling apart than Waspinator. Earthrise Wheeljack is an Earthrise figure. Fuck off with this, Hasbro. Wingfinger. A bizarre figure that looks bad until you put it in a pose, at which point it actually becomes pretty cool. He's got to be the most uncommon, greater than the sum of its parts toy I've ever seen. The look is bad and overly skinny, yet it winds up cool. The posability is at best average, yet it winds up great. The transformation is absurdly simple, yet remarkably fun. And the alt mode has nearly no change, yet is perfect. I think this figure might be able to power Starship engines, it's warping reality so hard. Trax. So very close to being a good figure. So almost good. Unfortunately, it suffers from a case of stupid designer who apparently had never heard of tabs and pegs before and didn't know what they were for or what they should be like, so the figure just doesn't hold together in the legs at all. Even if you try to fix him, it doesn't help every copy. But even if he did work, he is made of a ton of thin, clear plastic that all so tightly locked together, like the legs should have been, that every transformation makes you clench your ass in fear hard enough to turn coal into diamond. Voyager Rhinox. Designed by the same career hack that made the WFC Bruticus and Redline, Kingdom Rhinox is one of the crappiest figures I've ever covered. And here's the thing, none of the stuff that makes him suck matters. He is brutally inaccurate to his source material in robot mode, not just despite his faux forming, but because of it. Doesn't matter. Articulation is bad. Doesn't matter. Transformation is horrendous to the point I'd rather pop his feet off their joints than do it. Doesn't matter. Alt mode looks uninspired, wrong, and has attention-grabbing robot kibble. Does not matter. All that matters is that this is one of the ugliest figures I've ever seen. There are movie characters who were intentionally designed to be hideous, who are less of a pain to look at than this cup-eared, fish-lipped, flounder-flat-bodied freak. There are only 3 figures in the War for Cybertron that suck anywhere in the vicinity of this much. Leader Galvatron. Is it fair to say, finally, a good Galvatron? What took them so long? It's not like they never tried before. Well, I guess they never tried to make a good one at least. Why was it every time before now they tried to do something unique and different that no one wanted? Too bad most of these had their arms misassembled, but it's nice and refreshing to see them just try to do a halfway decent Galvatron with no frills for once and succeed at it. Commander Class Rodimus Prime. A figure I really went on a journey with. For the longest time, I was offended at this thing's very existence. Not a true commander class, not worth it, full of crap to force up the price, and to an extent that's all still true. But this is a great figure that immediately went on sale for $60, and why wasn't I allowed to reap that benefit? No, I had to get my video out as early as possible. Couldn't wait for the sale that was right around the corner that I didn't know about. Feels good, transforms good, poses good, looks good, except for the face. This was probably meant for $86. $60 is the price this thing is worth. Not 80, 60. But for that price, this is a slam dunk. Titan Class Arc. This thing blows as a robot. When I reviewed this thing, I posited that the joints felt really breakable, and lo and behold, I have received dozens of reports from fans that has come to pass with their copies. This thing is ugly and awkward, it feels so very half-hearted and incomplete, and I still recommend it because you should never be transforming this thing. Its arc mode is great, and you should be leaving it in that mode. Plus, mainframe rocks. Teltran 1 and an arc, that's all I needed for my 150, and I'm happy with that. Wave 4. I don't even know what's happening with this list anymore. Deluxe Pipes. It's Huffer again, slightly retooled without any effort put into it. If they charged core price for this, I'd be cool with it, but they didn't, so fuck this thing. Waspinator. If they did not put a Waspinator in this line, I would have dug up Brian Goldner's grave and left his body in the dirtiest public bathroom I could find. But he's here, so I didn't have to do that. This is a pretty decent Waspinator. It's just flat out too small. Waspinator should have been just barely shorter than Dinobot, so their excuse that they were making the figure smaller for scale accuracy gets proven to be the false pretext that it is. But overall, this is a good-looking, well-posing, decent transforming figure that does the character more justice than some other molds in this line. Shadow Panther. Cheetor again, but cool and edgy with a unique head and a less effort paint job. Really, Wave 4 was just a no-effort wave. Voyager Tigatron. Cheetor again, but bigger and at least mostly better handled, with bad weapon storage, better posability, and a really awkward shoulder line that messes with a lot of people's sensibilities. Transformation is better than Cheetor, as is alt mode. Let's be frank, this is just better Cheetor, but it is not Figure of the Year material. I will never let that go, Hasbro, you lying hacks! Wave 5 is the wave where they just gave up and soaked up some figures from the next line. Core Class Hot Rod. One of the 4 worst figures in the entire War for Cybertron, 3 of them being from Kingdom. An insult to Core Class. Crap in every way. Deluxe Slammer. How was this the last Deluxe of Kingdom? A weaponizer, not a fossilizer, of a G1 non-character. How was the last wave the only one to have no Beast Wars characters in the Beast Wars line? For a weaponizer, I find that Slammer is one of the most interesting and one of the worst built. Not able to turn into a ton of stuff, but his tank mode is probably the most cohesive alt mode of the whole subgroup, and the weapons he does turn into are probably the coolest in his entire faction. Lastly, Voyager Blaster. A micro masterpiece probably intended for 86, but these lines had a crazy amount of cross-pollination. A figure whose by worst flaw is that it poses averagely. Everything else was excellent to amazing. So what the fuck happened? How did Kingdom end up this way? Well, I hate to do this to you, but you will have to wait until the next video to find out. My normal scripts are 2,300 words long. This one had gotten to 4,300, and I was actively leaving stuff out on purpose because I didn't want to turn this into a 30-minute abomination. This is already my largest script ever, and I'm not really quite sure how that happened, considering I don't think I'm doing anything different from my other retrospectives. I didn't need to turn this into a behemoth no one would watch because people come to me for short videos covering 2 episodes worth of subjects when I could just make it, 2 episodes. So, if you want to hear all my theories on why I think Kingdom is a line that completely lost its way by the end, you will have to come back on Wednesday. Or if you're watching this in the future, I will put a link in this one's description. But to wrap up this video, looking back on Kingdom, even if it was all over the place, it was one of the best lines we've ever gotten. Siege was more consistently excellent, Earthrise definitely not its equal, but this was the line that at least to me felt like it meant the most of them. Like it wanted to be more than just one more year of the Transformers, even if it couldn't quite get where it was trying to go. And considering I have to do a whole second episode to wrap up everything I had to say on this subject, believe me this time when I say, that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please, share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.